Dear viewers, this powerful story addresses a serious issue of domestic violence hidden behind closed doors. You'll learn to recognize the signs of abuse, understand that it's never the victim's fault, and see that escape and justice are possible. This story is for every woman who's been told to be patient or pray more instead of being protected. After watching, please share this with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to African Tales by Zainab for more stories that tackle real issues and empower real change. Zainab stood in front of the bathroom mirror, carefully applying foundation over the purple bruise that bloomed across her left cheekbone. She'd gotten good at this over the past 3 years. The art of hiding pain behind makeup, of covering violence with a smile. From the outside, her life looked perfect. She was 26 years old, married to Usman Bello, a successful 32-year-old businessman from one of Lagos's most respected northern Nigerian families. His father was a retired military general. His mother came from old money. They lived in a beautiful house in Lekki, drove expensive cars, and attended high society events where everyone treated Usman with deference and respect. No one knew what happened behind their closed doors. No one knew about his mantra, obey or be punished. The abuse had started 6 months into their marriage. Before that, during their courtship at the university where they'd met, Usman had been charming, attentive, loving. He'd pursued her relentlessly despite his family's disapproval. She was Yoruba, from a modest middle-class family in Ibadan. Her father was a civil servant, her mother a teacher. They weren't his level, his family said. They weren't his tribe. But Usman had insisted he loved her, and eventually his family had grudgingly accepted the marriage. Zainab's parents had been thrilled their daughter was marrying into such wealth and prestige. The first time he hit her, she'd been so shocked she couldn't even scream. They'd hosted a dinner party, and she'd laughed too loudly at someone's joke. After the guests left, he'd slapped her across the face. "You embarrass me," he'd said coldly. "You were too loud, too familiar. You made me look like I can't control my wife." She'd apologized through tears, and he'd seemed remorseful. "I'm sorry. You need to learn. A good wife knows how to behave." She'd told herself it was a one-time thing. She'd been wrong. The violence escalated. He controlled everything, her phone, which he checked nightly, her movements, requiring her to ask permission to leave the house, even to visit her parents, her money, insisting she didn't need to work because my wife working is embarrassing to me. She had no income, no independence, no escape route. The beatings happened at night. During the day, in public, he was the perfect husband, attentive, generous, respectful. But at night, anything could trigger his rage. Dinner wasn't perfect. She'd taken too long at the market. She'd looked in the direction of another man. She'd questioned one of his decisions. "Obey or be punished," he'd say before the belt came down, before his fist connected, before she learned to curl into a ball and wait for it to end. She'd tried telling people. Once, she'd call her mother after a particularly bad beating, voice shaking as she tried to explain. Her mother's response had broken something inside her. "Every marriage has problems, Zainab. You need to pray more. Be patient. Learn what makes him angry, and avoid those things. This is how marriage works." She'd tried Usman's mother, showing her bruises on her arms. The older woman had looked at her with contempt. "My son is a good man. You must have done something to anger him. You need to learn submission. Learn to be a better wife." The community loved Usman. He was generous to the mosque, successful in business, from a good family. No one would believe her if she spoke out. She'd learned that silence was survival. But tonight, looking at her reflection, at the foundation covering bruises, at the long sleeves hiding finger-shaped marks on her arms, at the woman she barely recognized, something shifted. Earlier that evening, Usman had used his belt on her back because the rice had been slightly undercooked. She'd counted 30 lashes before he'd stopped, breathing hard, telling her, "You'll learn. Eventually, you'll learn." She'd waited until he fell asleep, then crept to the bathroom. Under the harsh fluorescent light, she'd lifted her shirt and seen her back crisscrossed with welts, some bleeding. She was 26 years old. 26. And she was dying slowly, day by day, beaten down into nothing. "This isn't life," she whispered to her reflection. "This is just surviving. Barely." How much longer could she survive? A year? 5 years? Or would one beating go too far, and she become another statistic, another woman whose husband accidentally killed her? She thought about her wedding day 3 years ago. She'd been so happy, so full of hope. She believed she was starting a beautiful life. Instead, she'd enter prison with a warden who smiled at strangers and tortured her when no one was watching. Zainab looked at herself one more time, really looked at the fear in her eyes, at the defeated slump of her shoulders, at the way she'd learned to make herself smaller, quieter, less. "No," she said aloud, her voice surprising her with its strength. "No more." She didn't know how yet. She didn't have a plan. She had no money, no job, nowhere to go. But standing in that bathroom, looking at her broken reflection, Zainab made a decision that would change everything. She would escape. Somehow, some way, she would get out. She would survive this. And maybe, just maybe, she would do more than survive. Maybe she would live. Over the next 2 weeks, Zainab became a woman with a secret mission. She played the role of the obedient wife even better than before, but now it was deliberate, calculated. Every yes, Usman, and whatever you want, Usman was a strategy, not surrender. She started hiding money. When Usman gave her cash for groceries, she'd buy cheaper vegetables and keep the difference. 500 naira here, 1,000 there. She'd tuck the bills into the lining of an old handbag she kept in the back of her closet, one he bought her years ago and forgotten about. She memorized phone numbers. Usman controlled her phone, checking it every night, so she couldn't save contacts. But she'd seen a women's shelter mentioned on a TV program once, back when he still let her watch TV. She repeated the number in her head until it stuck. 0803 555 0123. She wrote it on tiny pieces of paper hidden in her clothing, in case fear made her forget. She paid attention to his schedule. He left for his office at 8 a.m. every weekday and returned at 6 p.m. On Tuesdays, he had business dinners and came home at 9 p.m. That gave her 13 hours. Enough time to disappear. The beatings decreased slightly during this time. Her excessive submission pleased him. "You're learning," he'd said one evening, actually smiling at her. "Finally, you're becoming the wife I need you to be. See how much better things are when you obey." She'd smile back, playing her part, while inside she counted down days until escape. Then came the night that made waiting impossible. They were having dinner, a meal she prepared perfectly, exactly how he liked, when Usman made an announcement. "We're going to start trying for a baby." Zainab's fork froze halfway to her mouth. "What?" "You heard me. My mother has been asking. We've been married 3 years. It's time." He cut his meat casually, as if he hadn't just announced her permanent imprisonment. "I want a son. We'll start trying immediately." Her blood turned to ice. A baby, a child would trap her forever. She'd never escape with a baby. She'd never leave her child with him. A baby meant life sentence in this hell. "Usman, I'm not ready. I think we should wait." His fork clattered onto his plate. The temperature in the room dropped. "Are you questioning me?" "No, I just thought." "You don't think. That's not your job. Your job is to obey. We're having a baby because I've decided we're having a baby. That night, he forced himself on her despite her protests. She lay still afterward, tears sliding into her hair, her body not her own, her future slipping away. But clarity came with the tears. If she didn't leave now, immediately, not in weeks, now, she never would. A baby meant forever. A baby meant no escape. The next morning, Usman left for work at his usual time. He'd be gone until 6 p.m. She had 10 hours. Her hands shook as she pulled out the old handbag with her hidden money. 15,000 naira total. Not much, but something. She packed a small bag, few changes of clothes, her ID, her university certificates, the phone number she'd written down. Nothing expensive, nothing he'd noticed missing immediately. She moved through the house in a daze of terror and determination. Every sound made her jump. What if he came back early? What if someone told him? What if she couldn't actually do this? She wrote a note in careful handwriting. Gone to visit my mother. Will be back tonight. It would buy her time. He'd assume she'd be back by evening. He wouldn't start searching immediately. Getting to the bus station was terrifying. She told their neighbor, an elderly woman, that her phone was broken and asked to use hers to call a taxi. The neighbor agreed without question. The taxi driver asked no questions when she requested the bus station. At the station, she almost bought a ticket to Ibadan to her parents. But she stopped herself. Her mother would send her back. Her mother had already told her that marriage meant patience and prayer, not escape. Instead, she went to a payphone with shaking hands and called the number she'd memorized, 0803-555-0123. Women's Crisis Center. How can I help you? The woman's voice was kind. Zainab almost broke down just hearing kindness. I need help. I need somewhere to go. My husband, he hurts me. I just escaped. I don't know what to do. Where are you right now? The main bus station. I have some money, but not much. Listen to me carefully. Can you get to this address? The woman gave her an address in a different part of Lagos. We're a shelter for women escaping violence. You'll be safe here. Can you come now? Yes, I can come. Good. Take a taxi. When you arrive, ring the bell. Tell them Sarah sent you. We'll take care of you. 20 minutes later, Zainab stood in front of an unmarked building in a quiet residential area. Her finger hovered over the doorbell. This was it. Once she rang, there was no going back. She thought of Usman, of his belt, of his fists, of obey or be punished, of the baby he wanted that would trap her forever. She rang the bell. A woman opened the door, middle-aged, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She took one look at Zainab's face and opened her arms. You're safe now. Come inside. Zainab walked through that door and into freedom. That night, for the first time in 3 years, she went to sleep without fear of being hurt. She cried herself to sleep, but they were tears of relief mixed with terror. She'd escaped. Now came the hard part, staying free. Zainab just escaped after 3 years of abuse. She had no money, no support, but she found the courage to leave when she realized the baby would trap her forever. Have you ever known someone in an abusive relationship? What would you do to help them? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story is opening your eyes to the reality of domestic violence, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion for more stories that tackle real issues and save real lives. Next chapter reveals a shocking twist that changes everything. You need to see what happens next. When Usman arrived home at 6 p.m. to an empty house, his first emotion was confusion. Then he saw the note. Gone to visit my mother. Will be back tonight. He frowned. She hadn't asked permission, but the note seemed innocent enough. He'd deal with her lack of respect when she returned. By 9 p.m., when she still wasn't back, confusion turned to irritation. He called her phone. It rang in the bedroom. She left it behind. That's when he knew. She hadn't gone to her mother. She'd run. His irritation exploded into cold rage. How dare she? After everything he provided, the house, the lifestyle, the respectability of being his wife, how dare she run like some ungrateful child? He called her mother in Abaddon, keeping his voice carefully concerned. Mama, Zainab, good evening. Is Zainab there with you? Zainab? No. Isn't she with you? Oh, she mentioned wanting to visit. I must have misunderstood. She's probably at the market. Thank you, Ma. He hung up quickly. He couldn't report her missing. Too many questions about why a wife would run from her husband. Questions about his private life. Questions he couldn't afford. No, he'd find her himself. Quietly. And when he did, she'd learn what real punishment meant. Meanwhile, at the shelter, Zainab was experiencing care for the first time in years. A doctor examined her injuries, photographing every bruise, every scar, documenting years of abuse with clinical precision. These photographs are evidence, the doctor said gently. When you're ready to press charges, this documentation will be crucial. Press charges? Against Usman? The thought seemed impossible and terrifying. But the shelter counselor, a woman named Mrs. Okonkwo, sat with her daily. This wasn't your fault, Mrs. Okonkwo repeated. Abuse is never the victim's fault. He chose to hurt you. Those were his choices, not yours. Zainab heard these words and wept. No one had ever said that to her. Everyone had always made it her fault. She wasn't patient enough, submissive enough, good enough. The shelter had 12 other women, all with similar stories. Different details, same nightmare. Zainab wasn't alone. She thought she was the only one, but violence behind closed doors was more common than anyone admitted. A lawyer visited the shelter, offering pro bono services. She reviewed Zainab's case and the medical documentation. You have a strong case for divorce based on abuse. We can also get a protection order and possibly press criminal charges for assault. His family is powerful. Zainab said quietly, they'll fight this. Let them fight. We have evidence, medical records, your testimony. The law is on your side. Zainab signed the papers to start divorce proceedings. Her hand shook, but she signed. While Zainab was beginning legal action, Usman was escalating his search. He went to Abaddon personally, playing the worried husband to Zainab's parents. I'm so concerned, he told them, his face a mask of worry. She's been acting strange lately. Paranoid, saying odd things. I think she might be having some kind of mental breakdown. He was planting seeds. If Zainab spoke out, he'd claim she was mentally unstable. Her mother's worried expression told him it was working. My daughter did seem stressed when we last talked, her mother said. Should we call hospitals? I'm checking everywhere, Usman assured her. I just want her safe and back home where I can take care of her. 3 weeks passed. Zainab was healing, seeing the counselor daily, moving forward with legal proceedings. The shelter felt like a cocoon of safety after years in a war zone. Then one evening, a new woman arrived at the shelter. She was young, maybe 23, with a swollen eye and split lip. Her name was Halima. As the shelter workers got her settled, Zainab helped prepare a bed in her room. Thank you, Halima said quietly. I didn't know where else to go. I understand. We all do here. Over the next few days, as Halima began opening up in group sessions, Zainab listened to a story that sounded eerily familiar. Controlling husband, wealthy family, isolated from friends, daily violence, obey or be punished. During a private conversation, Halima mentioned, "We've been married 6 months. I thought marriage was supposed to be happy. But from the first week, what's your husband's name?" Zainab asked, something cold settling in her stomach. "Usman. Usman Bello. Do you know him?" The room tilted. Zainab couldn't breathe. "Usman Bello? From Lagos? Businessman? Father's retired military." Halima's eyes widened. "Yes. How do you—" "He's my husband," Zainab whispered. "I've been married to him for 3 years." The silence that followed was deafening. That's impossible," Halima said. "We got married 6 months ago. There was a wedding. His family was there. We have a marriage certificate." They called Mrs. Okonkwo immediately. When presented with the facts, she wasn't surprised. "Bigamy isn't uncommon with abusers," she said grimly. "They're often leading double lives. Multiple victims, same patterns." Zainab and Halima sat together, comparing timelines. When Usman told Zainab he was traveling for business, he was with Halima. When he told Halima he was visiting his sick mother, he was with Zainab. 2 wives, 2 women, both beaten, both controlled, both told they deserved it. "That monster," Halima whispered, then louder, "that absolute monster. He's been living a complete double life." Zainab said, her voice hollow. "How many times did he leave my bed to go to yours? How many lies has he told?" The shelter lawyer was called in. She listened to both stories, reviewed documentation from both women. "This changes everything," she said. "Bigamy is illegal in Nigeria. Combined with the assault charges, the evidence from 2 victims with the same pattern, we can destroy him." Halima looked at Zainab. "I want him to pay. For both of us. For any other women he's hurt." Zainab took her hand. "Then we go after him together. 2 victims, 1 predator." And finally, justice was within reach. Zainab and Halima walked into the police station together, their lawyer between them. The desk sergeant looked up skeptically as the lawyer laid out the case. Domestic violence, assault, and bigamy. "Bigamy?" The sergeant's eyebrows rose. "You're sure?" The lawyer placed 2 marriage certificates on his desk. Both legal, both to Usman Bello. One from 3 years ago to Zainab. One from 6 months ago to Halima. Both marriages are registered. Both women have documented injuries from domestic violence by the same man. We're here to file charges. The sergeant's skepticism faded as he reviewed the evidence. Medical records, photographs of injuries, police reports were filed. An investigation was opened. Word spread quickly in Lagos's elite circles, not through official channels, but through whispers, through shock phone calls. Usman Bello, from the respected Bello family, accused of bigamy and domestic violence by 2 wives no one knew he had. His family was furious, not at him, but at the audacity of these women daring to make public accusations. His mother showed up at the police station, imperious and enraged. "My son is being framed by ungrateful women who want his money. This is character assassination." But the police had evidence now. 2 victims, medical documentation, marriage certificates proving bigamy. The investigation expanded. As news spread, women who'd known Usman came forward with their own stories. Not wives, but women he'd dated before marriage, women who'd escaped before he put a ring on their fingers. Then came the call that changed everything. A woman named Amina, 28 years old, living in Abuja, contacted the lawyer after seeing news reports. "I was married to Usman Bello," she said over phone, 5 years ago. "For 2 years, he beat me regularly. I finally escaped and fled to Abuja. I never pressed charges. I was too terrified of his family's power." The lawyer arranged for Amina to fly to Lagos. When she arrived at the shelter and met Zainab and Halima, the 3 women stared at each other with a mixture of horror and recognition. 3 of us, Amina said, "At least 3 of us that we know of," Halima added darkly. The lawyer now had 3 victims spanning 5 years, all with documented abuse, all with the same pattern. The case was ironclad. Usman's arrest happened at his office, mid-meeting with business associates. Police walked in and handcuffed him in front of his shock partners. Usman Bello, "You're under arrest for bigamy, multiple counts of assault and battery, and domestic violence." His face drained of color. "This is a mistake. I want my lawyer." "You'll need one," the detective said grimly. The news exploded. Wealthy businessman arrested. Multiple wives. Years of abuse. His reputation, carefully cultivated over decades, disintegrated overnight. His family hired expensive lawyers who tried to negotiate. "My client is willing to offer generous compensation for quick, quiet divorces." The women's lawyer cut them off. "No deals. This goes to trial. Your client is a serial abuser who uses wealth and family name to hurt vulnerable women. He needs to face full legal consequences." As the trial date approached, Usman's family tried intimidation. Anonymous calls to the women's families. Whispered threats through intermediaries. Attempts to discredit the victims. But something had shifted in the community. An imam spoke at Friday prayers. Domestic violence is not acceptable in Islam. A man who raises his hand to his wife is not a man. He's a coward. These women seeking justice deserve our support, not our judgment. Other religious leaders followed suit. Women's groups organized support. The tide of public opinion, initially divided, began turning against Usman. Zainab's mother finally visited the shelter. When she saw the photographs of her daughter's injuries, years of documented abuse, she collapsed into a chair, weeping. "My daughter, I'm so sorry. I told you to pray and be patient. I should have listened. I should have protected you." Zainab knelt beside her mother. "You believe what society taught you, but we can change that. We can help other women before they suffer like I did." The trial was brutal. Usman pleaded not guilty, claiming the women were vindictive and lying. His lawyer painted them as gold diggers, mentally unstable, scorned women seeking revenge. But the evidence was overwhelming. 3 victims testified. Doctors presented medical records. Photographs of injuries were displayed. The pattern was undeniable. The judge was a woman in her 50s who presided over too many domestic violence cases that ended with dead wives. When the verdict came, the courtroom was packed. "On all counts, we find the defendant guilty." Usman's mother screamed. His father sat stone-faced. His lawyers immediately began discussing appeals. The judge continued, "Mr. Bello, your abuse wasn't a momentary loss of control. It was systematic, calculated, and repeated across multiple victims over many years. You used your family's name and wealth as weapons to silence your victims. This court will not be complicit in that silence. I sentence you to 7 years in prison on the assault charges. The bigamy charge carries an additional 2 years to run concurrently. You will serve 7 years. Additionally, permanent restraining orders are granted protecting all 3 victims from any contact with you or your family." In the courtroom, 3 women held hands and cried, not from pain this time, but from relief. Justice. Finally, justice. Guilty. 7 years in prison. The serial abuser is finally behind bars. 3 wives he abused, and he thought his good family name would protect him. But the evidence was too strong. What did you think of the sentence? Should it have been longer? Share your opinion in the comments. If you believe abusers should face real consequences, like this video and subscribe to African Tales by Zion for more stories about justice and empowerment. Chapter 5 shows what happened to survivors and how they're changing the world. Don't miss the powerful ending. 6 months after the trial, Zainab stood in her small apartment in Yaba, sipping morning tea and looking out at Lagos waking up. It wasn't a fancy apartment. 1 bedroom, modest furniture, nothing like the luxury she'd had with Usman. But it was hers, earned with money from her new job at a women's rights NGO. chosen by her, controlled by her. Freedom had a taste, she discovered. It tasted like morning tea drunk in peace, without calculating whether the tea was perfect enough to avoid punishment. Her phone rang. It was Halima. "Sister, are you ready for today?" Today they were speaking at a university about domestic violence awareness. Zainab, Halima, and Amina had become a team, speaking publicly about their experiences. "Ready," Zainab confirmed. The three women met regularly now, sisters bound not by blood but by survival. Halima was back in school, studying social work. Amina had started a support group for abuse survivors. Zainab worked with the NGO that had helped her, using her experience to identify and assist other women trapped in violent marriages. The healing process wasn't linear. There were nightmares. There were days when a man raising his voice in a market made her heart race with panic. There were moments when she still felt Usman's hand around her throat, even though he was locked away. But therapy helped. The support group helped. And slowly, the terror faded, replaced by something stronger, purpose. Her relationship with her mother was healing too, though slowly. "I was wrong," her mother had said during one visit. "I was taught that marriage was sacred above all else, even above your safety. I taught you wrong. I'm trying to learn better, to be better." That conversation had mattered more to Zainab than any apology. One morning, a letter arrived from the prison. She recognized the handwriting before she saw the name Usman. Her hands didn't shake as she opened it. That surprised her. "Zainab, I've had time to think here. I was wrong. The way I treated you was wrong. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm sorry. I wish I could take it back. I wish I'd been the husband you deserved. Please forgive me." She read it twice, waited for emotion, anger, satisfaction, pain, but she felt nothing. Not rage, not triumph, just nothing. She dropped the letter in the trash and went to make breakfast. Later at the university, standing before 200 students, Zainab told her story, not with shame but with strength. "I was trapped in a marriage where obey or be punished was the rule. I was beaten regularly, controlled completely, isolated from everyone, and I stayed for 3 years because I believed I had no choice." She paused, looking at the young faces. Some women were crying. "But here's what I learned. You always have a choice. It might not feel like it. The choice might be terrifying, but it exists. I chose to escape. I chose to seek help. I chose to press charges. I chose to rebuild my life." Domestic violence isn't a family matter. It's a crime. If your partner hits you even once, that's abuse. If he controls who you see, where you go, what you wear, that's abuse. If he tells you that you deserve punishment, that's abuse. A hand went up. A young woman, maybe 19. What if no one believes you? What if his family is powerful? "Then you find people will believe you," Zainab said firmly. "Shelters, lawyers, NGOs, hotlines. They exist because you're not alone. Thousands of women experience this. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. And you deserve safety." After the talk, a line of women waited to speak with them. Some shared their own stories. Others asked for resources. One woman showed them bruises hidden under long sleeves and whispered, "I'm going to leave. Because of you, I know I can." That night, Zainab updated her count. In the 2 years since her escape, she directly helped 47 women leave abusive situations. She'd trained community members to recognize warning signs. She'd spoken at schools, churches, mosques, community centers. She'd become an advocate, a voice for women who were still too scared to speak. One evening, she received a call from a television station. They wanted her to appear on their national evening program to discuss domestic violence. The interview aired during prime time. Millions watched as Zainab told her story. The perfect marriage that was a nightmare, the escape, the discovery that she was one of 3 wives, the trial, the 7-year sentence. The response was overwhelming. The shelter where she first found safety received increased funding. The NGO she worked for saw a surge in calls to their hotline. Women across Nigeria reached out, saying, "I thought I was alone. Your story gave me courage." But there was backlash too. Angry messages claiming she was destroying African family values. Accusations that she was spreading Western feminist propaganda. She responded to one such message publicly. African family values should include love, respect, and safety, not violence, not control, not abuse. Any tradition that requires women to accept being beaten is not a tradition worth keeping. More men began speaking up too, saying, "This is not our culture. Real men protect, they don't hurt." 2 years after her escape, Zainab was invited to speak at a conference on domestic violence law reform. She stood at a podium before lawmakers and said, "We need stronger laws, yes, but we also need cultural change. We need to stop telling women to be patient and start telling men don't hit. We need to stop protecting abusers and start protecting victims." One afternoon, she visited the shelter where her journey to freedom began. A new woman had just arrived, 24 years old, with familiar bruises and familiar fear. Zainab sat beside her, as she'd been sat beside 2 years ago. "I'm Zainab. I was where you are 2 years ago. Scared, hurt, convinced I'd never escape." The woman looked at her with hopeless eyes. "How did you do it? How did you survive?" "One day at a time, one choice at a time. And I had help, like you're getting help now. You're not alone." "I feel like my life is over," the woman whispered. Zainab took her hand gently. "No, listen to me carefully. Your old life is over, the life where you were hurt and controlled. But your real life, it's just beginning. You survived. Now you get to live." The woman cried, and Zainab held her hand. Remember her own first night in the same shelter, feeling the same hopelessness that was actually the beginning of hope. Later, walking home through Lagos streets, Zainab thought about the journey. From victim to survivor to advocate. From silence to voice. From obey or be punished to escape and speak truth. She'd helped 47 women escape. She'd trained hundreds of community members. She'd spoken to thousands of students. She'd testified before lawmakers. She'd appeared on national television. But the work wasn't done. There were still women trapped in violent marriages, told to pray and be patient. Still girls being taught that a man's anger was their fault. Still communities protecting abusers because of family names and social status. So she'd keep fighting, keep speaking, keep helping one woman at a time to find the courage to escape. Because she remembered what it felt like to be alone in hell, believing no one cared and no one would help. And she dedicated her life to making sure no woman ever had to feel that alone again. That night, she updated her journal, a practice her therapist had recommended. "Dear younger me, you survived. You're not just surviving anymore, you're living. The nightmares still come sometimes, but they're fading. You built a life from nothing. You turned pain into purpose. Usman took 3 years of your life, but you're taking the rest of them back. And you're using your story to save others. You were broken, but you rebuilt yourself stronger. You were silenced, but you found your voice. You were told you were nothing, but you know now that you're everything. This isn't the end of your story. It's just the beginning. With love and respect, Zainab." She closed the journal, turned off the light, and went to sleep. Peacefully, without fear, free. Asterisk from victim to survivor to advocate. Zainab didn't just escape and heal. She dedicated her life to helping 47 other women find freedom. That's the power of turning pain into purpose. This story isn't just entertainment. It's real life for millions of women. If you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship, please reach out for help. You deserve safety. You deserve peace. You deserve life. What lesson hit you hardest from Zainab's story? Was it her courage to escape? The truth about multiple wives? Or her mission to help others? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you or opened your eyes to the reality of domestic violence, please like this video and share it. It might save someone's life. Subscribe to African Tales by Zion with notifications on for more powerful stories that tackle real issues and inspire real change. Remember, obey or be punished is not love. It's abuse. Real love doesn't hurt. Real love doesn't control. Real love doesn't destroy. Thank you for watching, and together, let's break the silence around domestic violence. One story at a time. One survivor at a time. Asterisk.